Good evening. The time is now 6:30, and we'll call this board meeting, the DeSoto ISD Board of Trustees, August 8th, 2016, to order. Item 1A calls for a welcome. I've just extended that welcome to you. 1B calls for an invocation. Tonight we have with us Bishop Robert Nichols, Jr. of River Life Church in DeSoto, who will be leading us in the invocation. Item 1C calls for a pledge, and item 1D calls for the mission statement, which will be read into our hearing by Trustee Hooper. Let's all stand for a word of prayer.
Your heads bowed. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for the breath that you've given to us. Thank you for these who have gathered to make a difference in our community. God, you said if we would acknowledge you, you would direct our path. And tonight we ask that you would direct our path and the decisions that will be made. Let them be for the betterment of our children and our community. Lead us and guide us, and we'll give you glory and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
DeSoto ISD will prepare each student academically and socially to be a problem solver and productive citizen for a 21st century global society.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper. Thank you, Bishop Nichols, for leading us in the invocation tonight. Item 1E calls for our emergency statement. I'll read that into your hearing at this time. DeSoto ISD takes the safety of our students, employees, and guests very seriously. In emergency situations such as a fire, please exit the building using one of the marked exits unless directed otherwise. Should we experience inclement weather such as a tornado, we'll ask all guests to move quickly into the interior building, away from all doors and windows. We'll monitor the situation at all times and advise, as well as coordinate with local emergency responders regarding when the situation has passed. Thank you. Item 1F calls for us to establish a quorum. We do have a quorum present with 6 board members present at this time. Item 1G calls for special recognitions. Trustee Moncrief.
State Coach of the Year by National Association. The U.S. Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Association, USTFCCCA, announced July 26 its state-by-state winners of its 3rd annual High School Coach of the Year Award for Track and Field. DeSoto's own head girls coach, track coach June Villers, was named the USTFCCCA Texas Coach of the Year. Started in 2014, the award is bestowed to selected coaches based on a number of criteria: their team's finishes at the respective state championships, the number of different events in which athletes were qualified, individual championships, and how their team's performances stack up to previous years, among other criteria. 1 boys coach and 1 girls coach from each state and the District of Columbia is selected, except in the case of Girls Coach of the Year in Georgia, where there were co-coaches this year. Each honoree will receive a trophy from USTFCCCA recognizing his or her achievements. As a bonus, the winners from each state are now in consideration for the USTFCCCA's National High School Track and Field Coach of the Year Award. 1 boys coach and 1 girls coach will be chosen by a panel of experts, and those names will be announced later this month. Congratulations to DeSoto's own head girls track coach, June Villers.
Congratulations once again on where you got the award.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Trustee Moncrief, and congratulations again to Coach Villers. That brings us to item 1H, which is our citizens' participation. Tonight we have no need for participation from our citizens. That brings us directly to our consent items. Item 2A calls for the renewal, casualty, and liability insurance for 2016-2017. Item 2B calls for set meeting date for public hearing of 2016-2017 proposed tax rate. 2C is purchase of GT curriculum and great books. Item 2D is school resource officers MOU. Item 2E, second reading of Update 105. And item 2F, minutes from the previous meetings. Board, we've had this for a few days and had time to review. I know some questions have been asked, and I believe we've all received answers. I'll entertain a motion if there be any from the board at this time. These are consent items.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the consent items as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Moncrief, second by Trustee Hooper, to approve the consent items as presented. Are there any questions, comments, points of discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 6-0. Brings us to our report items. Item 3A is the 2015-2016 AP exam results. Dr. Harris.
Mr. President, Board, this was a request that we supply the Board with end of the year AP results. If there are specific comments, we would certainly like to address those. If not, it is a report item, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Board, we've had this report item for some time now as well. We did have an opportunity to review. I know Trustee Gold wanted the information, and then I kind of back end on that and asked that we be specific as it relates to teachers and how they perform with this. And so I see Trustee Gold has a comment. All right.
More of, a question is, do we have readily available how many students took these classes? Did I miss that? Did I miss that?
I didn't give a total.
Did you find that?
Actually,
I
there's
do have those.
I have
numbers.
how
can get
many
those numbers.
on the report with how many took the test. But this is not everybody that was in those classes, is there?
No, it's not. It's the number who took the test.
Okay. Okay. And is there an explanation for why, can you give us then the numbers of how many were in the class versus how many took the test? Or an explanation of why not everybody takes the test? I do think I know the answer to that question, but would you address that, please?
Sure. This year we had the number of advanced courses, 25. AP enrollment, those students who were eligible for testing, 348. The number of AP exams, 435, because some students are eligible to take multiple tests. And the AP number of students, examinees, 274.
And just as a reminder, Board, that we did ask the Board to, did we put it, I'm trying to remember if we put it in policy or not, that students who do take AP courses starting this year, they must test. So that, you'll see the numbers change considerably next year as far as the number that are taking the test, which means now that the quality of instruction must greatly improve in those AP courses, because if not, it's based upon an average, which means the more people that take, unless they're being successful, then those numbers of overall percentages could drop. But the board did pass that. I think they passed as a policy.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Harris.
One second. Did you want to follow up in that same vein? Because typically we like to stick with the same person before
Okay.
we go around.
All right, I'll ask my question. What criteria do they have to meet to be able to take an AP class?
Okay, we follow the same criteria as the College Board. With the College Board, there is open enrollment to AP. However, we do look at indicators for who would most likely be successful in AP courses. And so there are conversations with the parents, with the students, and everyone to let them know the indicators of success. But the enrollment into AP courses is open enrollment.
Is any student ever denied access to an AP class?
No, they are not denied, but they are monitored. There are practices in place when students are struggling, where there's support put in place, and then that first 9 weeks, it used to be 6 weeks, but that 9-week period, and then that second 9-week period, if they are still struggling, there are committees that should meet and talk with the parents, the student, about what's going on, and of course the teacher has input, and sometimes students are, I won't say dismissed, but the choice is made that they will enroll in another class at that time.
So they may not be denied, but they can be exited.
Right.
I'm going to make the comment. I just hate to hold the teacher responsible for students who should definitely not, I'm not going to say probably, who should not be in those classes to begin with. And the teacher is held responsible for not bringing them up to that AP level. But when you consider where they started, let's take AP Calculus. That child should never have been in an AP Calculus class, probably English too, but we'll just take one of the harder classes. They shouldn't have been in there yet, and yet that teacher is held responsible for their progress. And maybe they have 3 years to catch up, to that level to really be in an AP class. I just hate holding the teacher responsible for something that is out of their control. Because and am I understanding correctly that the teacher doesn't have a choice whether or not that child is in that class? Even if the teacher knows the child and says, this child really is not ready for this AP level class, but the parent still insists the child be in there, the child is still in there. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. Initially, the student is placed in that class, and like I said, they are monitored and are given support. And at the beginning, we do counsel, encourage, and talk about what would be expected if that student's in the class, how the class is going to look, and what would be expected. But in the end, because we do have open enrollment in AP, and I think I've said that before, that's what the College Board recommends, that we have access. The students have equal access to those courses. But after that time period, if they're not being successful, as Dr. Harris said, they can be exited. And we do, some of those processes help to share the responsibility with the student, the parent, the teacher, everyone involved, that it's a partnership here. But if they're not successful, then they will be exited from the course.
Thank you, Trustee Gold. Trustee Hooper.
Thank you. One of my major concerns is just making sure. I understand the open enrollment, and I agree, and I understand why the open enrollment was put in place, because for so long, so many were denied access to take those courses for whatever reason. There are a number of reasons that students were denied access. And I appreciate the fact that we do have an exiting process for those students who may not be able to handle the rigor. What I'm extremely concerned about is making sure that the rigor is not compromised. Because if we want the kids to be successful on those AP tests, I think that we have to make sure that they're being taught at the rigor that they're going to be assessed. The second part of that is we need to make sure that the teacher that is in front of them is capable and able and has all of the necessary tools to teach at the level of rigor that is going to be assessed. And so my concern more so is the disconnect there than it is about the, who's in the class and the exiting of the class. And I think I agree that, sometimes you have to have those hard conversations with students and parents, that this is not something that you just want to attempt to take just for the sake of rank points. Because I know that is what happens. I mean, any of us that have been in the game for any extent of time know that that's what it is. However, there should be a very serious conversation that under no circumstances will the teacher water down the rigor of the course in an attempt to pacify either students who should not be in the course, or who are disingenuous as to why they're in the course, or who are not willing to put forth the effort that it takes to be successful in the course. The question that she asked in reference to the number of students that were in the course versus the amount of students that actually took the test, I appreciate the fact that we are setting forth a policy that strongly suggests, borderline requires those students to take the AP test. In addition to that, I know I've had conversations about for those that are successful in passing the test, because to my understanding that they actually pay for the test, the students, or they will be expected to pay for the test on the front end. That's my understanding?
That's correct.
Okay. And I know that we've had conversations about reimbursement for those that are successful in passing with a 3, 4, or 5 on the test.
Right.
And I think that, students should also know that piece too. But I think, we definitely need to make sure that the quality of our advanced placement courses are not compromised. And that is that's my most serious concern. And I just want to make sure that as administrators and Dr. Harris and his team are supplying those teachers with all of the necessary training and resources to be successful. Because, if we want our kids to be able to perform at the highest level, then we have to make sure that the person in front of them is able to teach at the highest level. I've also suggested that, for those who do take those, teach those advanced placement courses, that, that some type of stipends or things might be attached to those. But I also think that there should be some performance requirements attached to that also. I've never been the one who's not willing to pay for somebody who's performing and giving it all for our kids. And I definitely understand both sides of the piece. So, I appreciate the fact that we're putting some safeguards to kind of regulate the course. But at some point, you have to hold kids accountable also. No, we can't say you can't come in the course. But if you're going to get this F because you're not either going to do the work or perform at the level, then you need to understand that. We don't need to sugarcoat grades or scores or make somebody feel something good about themselves when they didn't put forth the effort to earn that. Because a lot of times parents don't understand. They just want to see A's and this, that, and the other.
Right.
I mean, we need to have a real conversation with both parents and students. And we're trying to prepare you to be in college. That's what the AP Advanced Placement course is about. College readiness. And so we need to prepare students to be college ready. And that's the level that the course, if you're going to get college credit, then it should be taught at the level to be college ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper. Trustee Dane.
Okay, another problem I see with allowing all students to sign up for, or any student to sign up for AP, is when they figure out that this really isn't for me and then they have to go back to an academic class. Some of those academic classes are very full. Are we going to rework teachers' schedules, including the AP teacher schedule? You know, if an AP teacher ends up with 5 kids in third period, but the academic teacher has 35 kids, I see a problem there. So are we going to work with teacher schedules and student schedules and numbers and do those adjustments? And you know, sometimes those AP kids are locked in because they take AP, and there's nowhere for them to go. So I don't want the academic teachers to have all these extra students at the end of the first 9 weeks.
I think we're all in agreement with you as well. Ms. Daniel, we know that we will be leveling daily, looking at AP classes and our regular ed classes, making sure that all classes are not over the limit. We want to make sure that all classes have an equitable amount of students in that classroom. We don't want too many students sitting around. We want to make sure that that all students are comfortable and in a learning environment that's going to allow them to be successful. That's something that we are monitoring daily. We're looking at schedules. We're looking at the teacher load every day. I've been looking at it every day. So we'll see where we are first day of school, and we'll make those adjustments for the first 10 days. You know, we do that every day, twice a day, matter of fact, that we're leveling to see where we can move students to ensure that we're meeting all those requirements. So we'll continue looking at that, even at each grading period. And so, of course, I know you're going to keep us involved. If you hear something, please let me know, because sometimes I don't see it all. So if you see something, just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Daniel. The spirit of this report is definitely to measure, you know, where we are, how effective we are in our AP courses. And I think the sentiment of this board is it doesn't make a lot of sense for students to receive A's in an AP class and then fail the AP test. And that's kind of what we're looking at. So, you know, I'm encouraged when I see and just to call them by name, right, you have Mr. Mason, who has been teaching the subject for years, who goes to training, and we see that his 5s doubled. We see that his 4s went up significantly. And even though he had more students test than years past, they performed at a higher rate than they had before. And so the question that this board, I'm sure, is wondering is how do we get more of these AP teachers to AP training so that they're equipped with the tools? And if there's a dollar value attached to that, then by all means bring that to the board so that we can see that and evaluate it. Because as we've done as a board, and as we planned over the past years, as we're increasing rigor and we have collegiate magnet, we have early college, and now we have IB, that's definitely going to pull some of these students out of the AP course. But we can't have teachers that use as an excuse, well, the top students are in IB now, and so these are the students who are just in AP now. That's a poor excuse, right? We need all of them to have the tools necessary to teach the rigor that's required so that if they're teaching an AP course, to Trustee Hooper's point, those students are receiving AP credit when they leave our campus, right? So that's important for us. So once again, just to belabor the point, right, Dr. Harris, if we need to, as a board, consider it being a prerequisite that all AP teachers take training every year or a requirement, then by all means bring that to us, because it's a poor excuse to see a teacher whose students can't pass the AP exam. And to be quite frank, that teacher shouldn't be comfortable with themselves signing up to teach AP every year when their students are not prepared for the rigor of AP, the AP exam. So once again, just on a to-do list, right? Bring that to us. Let us know what that looks like. And board, let's have a serious conversation about what we want to do with that. Because at the end of the day, our students deserve the best teachers in front of them. And I think it's been echoed by the board. We want to make sure that they have all the tools necessary, because that's our job, right? Is to make sure that every teacher has every tool. So any further comments, questions, discussion, board? Trustee, we'll go to Trustee Moncrief and then Trustee Gold.
Okay. So just from your comments, Mr. President, are we saying then that we don't already have some sort of prerequisite like that the teachers who are teaching AP classes have certain certification, mandatory training? For example, like in elementary school where we made it mandatory for all the teachers to get the additional 30 hours for GT? we don't have something like that. I mean, we're still touching this population in the AP classes, so I just find it shocking that we wouldn't have something like that in place already.
Okay. We do have training in place. The AP training teachers are on a 2-year rotation. They should go to training every other year, every 2 years. But we are developing our spreadsheet. Some of the issue, of course, is retention or turnover. And so sometimes they miss, and sometimes it's scheduling problems because it's in the summer. But we do have our spreadsheet designed here. We see who has been to training, who hasn't. So we will be getting with Mrs. Owens McGowan to ensure that the teachers are going to training.
Trustee Go.
I just want to make sure again that that piece is in place, that while the student and the parent is being counseled about the child's readiness for the AP class, that the teacher is involved in that piece.
Definitely. Okay, thank you. Yes. And we do have data, from tests and things to see that states their readiness. So yes, the teacher definitely would be involved in sharing that with the parent and the counselor. I don't know if you named the counselor. They play a role in that also, in sharing the data with them. Again, informing them of their readiness or for the AP course.
Okay.
See Trustee Gant.
So if, excuse me, if a teacher can't make the training in the summer, you mentioned schedule issues or whatever, what happens? I'm a teacher, I'm scheduled to go for 2 weeks of training, and I can't go. So what happens when school starts?
Well, oftentimes we look for additional training, but it's usually in the summer. So to be honest, they will go the next summer. We schedule it ahead of time to be sure that they're aware of the training. We look for other trainings that is not in depth as the College Board training, just workshops and training that they can go to. And of course, we share the best practices through our training, and we try to make sure that they're developed and state the requirements.
Okay, I guess, let me come at a different angle. There are certain things that we require to be an AP teacher. Am I wrong?
Right, that's correct.
Okay. And that wasn't a trick question, I'm just, educate me. So if one of those requirements is I attend 80 hours of training during the course of the summer, let's say I do not obtain that training. So what happens that third Monday in August when school starts? I mean, am I compensated for teaching that class?
No.
No,
You're
so
asking,
there's
is
no
there extra?
addition-
No.
There's no stipend or anything,
No.
kind of what Mr.
No,
Hooper was
there's not.
talking about? Okay. But I'm still held accountable for teaching those kids, and I have not completed that training.
That's correct.
I guess what my concern is, if I don't complete that training, I'm not qualified to teach at that level. That's now, and follow what I'm saying. I'm not saying the teacher not capable of teaching kids, but I'm saying this is an AP teacher, and these kids are already at a certain level. So if this AP teacher does not get the training that she's required, then the child loses out. Because in my mind, that AP teacher is not necessarily prepared to give that child that level of education. So flipping back to what my original question, what do we do? I mean, it may not be the same level as, all our teachers have college degrees, so forth and so on. So we don't have a teacher in a classroom that doesn't have a college degree. We don't have a teacher that doesn't obtain their certification at some point, even if they start out on a probationary, certification. But at what point does this teacher become
Don't.
completely certified under our guidelines?
Right. So, Mr. Gant, so one of the things that we're transitioning to that I think is really going to help us is that when we invest in teachers like AP, like Texas Tech 2+1, GT, where we're investing sizable amounts of money for teachers, one of the things that we're moving toward pretty much in all those areas is that they must agree to be with us for X amount of years. So, for example, the 2+1 Texas Tech program, they will be with us for 3. It literally ends up being 5 years. So that's the transition that we're making right now, because she's absolutely right. With sometimes we send them to training for 1 year, and the next year they may be gone, and so we're transitioning to that point. If we pay you to go to a AP training, which is normally done down at Rice University, I think it is, TCU or wherever, TCU, it depends on where it's located. If we're going to pay you to go there, and we're going to invest in you, we're going to get some ROI, return on investment, for your time for paying to do that. So that's one of those things that we're making that transition to.
Well, and I understand what you're saying, but to me, there's two issues. There's that we're investing and they're not staying. So we've got to tackle that.
Right.
Then there's that, okay, I couldn't make the training this summer because of whatever. I can't drive a car unless I have a driver's license. I mean, you follow what I'm saying?
Right. So
what do we do to ensure that the training is in place so that the child learns?
Right. So we require them to get the training. If they do not get the training, I think typically what is happening is you find your best teacher, your most qualified teacher. Maybe a teacher who already has a master's degree in ELA or somewhere along those lines. The thing that makes it difficult is if you have 2 sections of students who are requesting to take English AP or something like that. So you want to try to accommodate the students who are making that request. We could just say, if you're not qualified, we won't offer AP. We could say that. We could easily say that. We won't offer AP. I don't think that would go very well, but yeah.
Well,
so that's kind of where you are. So we just got to put some stop gaps in place that says you will have, and we will provide the training for you, and you will be here for X amount of years, so we're not having to invest in someone that's not going to be here for us.
Well, I agree with you. We can't say we won't have the class. The bottom line is the child, and that's, the child has to have accountability, but the teacher has to have accountability as well. If the teacher is going to teach that class, then the training needs to be provided. Okay, if we provide the training for you, okay, we need a commitment from you, Mr. Smith, Ms. Johnson, that, and I don't know if there's something that, it's not going to be resolved tonight, but I don't know if there's something that's put in the contract, or there's got to be something that protects the child. That's the bottom line. That's why we're here. And, I don't want to consistently have this revolving door of we're paying for training. That's right. And they're going to Cedar Hill and they're going to Richardson ISD, and that's not what we're not a training camp for other school districts. So I just, sorry,
But there are several.
I said I wasn't going to ask the question, but
There are several things in place also. Like we said earlier, we actually do our own professional development, and then we send them to Region 10, and we bring in some Region 10 people to make sure that happens. And the other thing, too, is to actually schedule ahead. So, put them on a schedule with the spreadsheet and let them know now that this summer, they will be expected to attend. So those are some things that we're doing, working, like I said, with the high school to make sure that they know, like you said, that this is serious and that you're expected to go. And right now, that this summer is when you're expected to go. We do have some new teachers there that have had the training. So we're equipped and ready to start the year with the expectation that they will receive that additional training from in-house, from Region 10, from others, and then in the summer go to the full training.
well, and I like that idea. schedule it, I don't know, 3-4 years out, you've got 2 summers to get it. But I am as serious as I am fat, black, and bald headed and sitting here. If they don't get the training, then they don't work in the school district. I don't know how much more serious I can make my point. If we reach out and say, here's the training that's available, we're going to pay for the training, we give you 24 months to get it, so you've got 2 summers. Okay, now, if I'm that teacher, I've got to bring something to the plate that says, okay, I can't go this summer because my daughter's getting married, but I know that leaves me 1 summer, and I know I got to go, or you don't teach in the school district. You know, I don't think Chief Costa is going to let me drive him down the street too many times without a driver's license. One time he might give me a warning. Ain't going to be no warning after that. So it is what it is. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Gant. Trustee Hooper.
Yes, the last thing that I just want to say is just to make sure that we're monitoring that effectively and efficiently. I can recall the situation with biology specifically, where that was not the practice nor the case. The test had actually changed, and the teacher had not been years prior to the test changing, and the kids knew more about the test changing than the instructor. And I don't know how aware of that you were in that process. And so the reason that some of these questions are what they are is because, you know, I know that we're putting systems in place now, but even as early as last school year, that was not the case. I mean, and so even with the level of success that we had with the biology test, that was because the students, you know, advocating and working and doing exploratory learning were able to rise to the occasion in spite of the situation. Now, we did find a rare find at the end, but unfortunately, he's gone to medical school now. But we found somebody, you know, to help them. You know, it was a rare find in the middle of the semester. But you know, we just have to be more aware of actually making sure it's going on. I know we have a new high school principal, and, you know, we have some turnover, and I know that we will inspect what we expect. But I can't say it any more clear that, you know, the board expects that we have a strong AP program. Secondly, we also expect that we don't compromise our AP program for IB or any other new program. Remember, we got data for AP. We don't have any data for IB. That's new. So, you know, pulling kids, targeting kids, and doing all of that, you know, I want us to be, you know, very strategic about that, but it is not our expectation that we compromise one program for another. So I just want to just be very clear about that, that we expect greatness from all of them. We expect scores and results from all of them. We expect to prepare students in all of our offerings. And so if there's nothing else that you've heard that I've said, hear that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper. Trustee Moncrief.
2 things. One thing that concerned me, the exit strategy. I'm always concerned about how we exit things around here. For example, I had some questions about iSTEAM earlier on in the year about how parents, what is the roadmap for you to get out of a program if you want to get out of a program, because you hear from parents that we don't know who to talk to and they tell us we can't get out. Same thing with AP. Since we switched over to this 9-week format, I'm not even going to try to count how many 9 weeks are in each semester, but then I heard you say you wait until the second 9 weeks to start intervening and doing stuff. To me, that just kind of almost sounds like it's too late. By that point, you halfway through the semester, and then we're going to go dump you off over with some other teacher in another class. So I'm kind of thinking these exit strategies need to be laid out a little more clearly. They need to be recalibrated so we can have earlier interventions and First and foremost, parents who are forward-thinking need to know clearly what is the exit route. There needs to be a big old exit sign. This is how I can get my child out of AP. I don't want them second-guessing and trying to figure out if they need to talk to 5 different people, because they shouldn't have to. So that when we see the warning signs, these kids have a way out. And my second point, in regards to, you mentioned that we have some new teachers at the high school who are going to be doing AP. For me personally, after hearing this discussion, I would kind of like to see, has an audit been done as to every single AP teacher, where they are on the extra training that they needed, so we can figure out where we are hitting the ground on August 22nd. I don't want this audit to happen next semester. We kind of need to have that figured out now, so we can certainly have the people who are lacking that the extra, whatever it is that they need, lacking the extra certification or the extra training, to make sure that they are targeted early enough. And unlike my colleague over there, I really don't even want it to be 2 years, because 2 years ago, I was sitting in a meeting where they're talking about building blocks for elementary kids and what to expect in high school. And they were talking about DeSoto having the most AP offerings in the best Southwest, second only to Plano. And then I'm sitting here and hearing that we have people who aren't even up to snuff. Folks, in the law, that's called deceptive trade practices. And I don't want that for these kids. I want to make sure that we are going to do whatever it takes. I think we need to keep our hands on the pulse of this situation. Like Trustee Hooper said, AP can't fall by the wayside, because AP was there before anything else. When we've got nothing else, we've got AP. So it can't fall by the wayside. We have to be intentional and strategic about AP, just like we are with any of the other programs that we do. And again, yes, it's yet another program, but at the same time, it's like cafeteria. It's a cafeteria plan. We've got various programs because we're trying to serve all palates and we're trying to, please all needs, but we got to make sure we're putting out the best offerings possible, and that whatever we're putting out there is in the best interest of our kids. And from what I'm hearing now, we got some work to do. And I want to make sure that we are staying on top of it and we're not just going to let this fall by the wayside.
Thank you, Trustee Mosby. Go ahead.
So would you prepare I know we already have it, but make it available to the board so they can see exactly all teachers that teach AP, they can see what their training has been. I know we already have that, but they'll get you a copy.
And just to be frank, and I see Trustee Daniel wants to get in. Just to be frank, we did want this at the retreat so that we could speak more freely about the individual teachers. So this should be a note to administration: when we ask you for something at a specific time, you can give it to us then. If we had this at the retreat, we could dig down and talk about the specific teachers. And then when you bring that report regarding who's had training, we can match that up with the numbers that perform. Because if you remember, the conversation was, if we've got teachers who are teaching AP and their students can't pass the class, why are they teaching it? And then your conversation to us would have been, well, they had training last year, or they had training 5 years ago, or they haven't had training. And then we could have an intelligent conversation without berating any teacher or faculty member, for that matter, in public setting. So yeah, you bring that back to us, but it'd be nice to have that conversation behind closed doors as a board so we can get to the nuts and bolts of it. Trustee Daniel.
We have prerequisites for talented and gifted. We have prerequisites for IB. We have prerequisites for early college. We have prerequisites for collegiate magnet. We have prerequisites for the Young Man's Leadership Academy, but we have no prerequisites for AP.
Yes, you do.
So we're hanging the teachers out to dry. They get kids who are not qualified for AP. I understand that the teachers need to be trained. I agree that the teachers need to be trained. But all the training in the world for a teacher is not going to make a student who is not qualified for AP successful, especially when teachers are under the gun. You can't let more than X number of students fail because failure is not an option around here. You know, so, okay, here is the teacher. Does the kid pass my class and fail the AP exam? Or does he fail my class and I get in trouble? Or does he fail my class and everybody is mad because we put him in another teacher's overcrowded class? Why can't we reinstitute some prerequisites? What does it matter what the College Board says? We are getting them ready for college. We are not giving them College Board requirements. We're giving them high school requirements, and we're setting the kids up to fail, and we're setting the teachers up to fail if we don't have some prerequisites. I've had plenty of kids in my class who could have gone to AP, but chose not to. But I've also had plenty of kids who never should have even attempted AP, and then they were moved back to my class, and they were behind in an academic class because we don't teach the same way. And it's two different things. So I'm not opposed to having prerequisites. I don't see a problem there. We have prerequisites for every other special program we have. Why don't we institute some for AP, for the kids? That way the kids can be successful and the teachers can be successful. And I know that sometimes those teachers have not gone to training because our school district has waited too long to register them for training and they missed it that year.
So we definitely understand that last one might have been an isolated event, but Dr. Harris, did you want to address the requirement, the prerequisites for it?
So just like all those programs that you named, there are prerequisites for AP. So it's pretty much the same process. So yes, someone can opt in or a parent can recommend, but there are still prerequisites for them to be in AP. So I mean, I'm not sure where that comes from, but there is. And just like anything else, if you could be in, so you can be in the male leadership and you can be exited. You can be in any program and you can be exited. So I mean, I'm not sure where there's no prerequisites for.
Dr. Inslee said there was no prerequisite. She said College Board recommends that there's no prerequisite.
But
that's where I got that.
But she also said we take a very close look at those students who are coming into that.
But we have 300 and something kids in AP, and we don't have anywhere near that many kids taking tests.
And that is why we put the policy in that if you take the course, then you are going to be required.
Do all the kids know that this year? Does every kid know that if I sign up for this class, I'm taking this test? I think we had this conversation last year.
We did. That's why we ended up with the policy.
Yeah.
The question was, do all kids know that they will be required to take the AP test? Just for the record, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought Dr. Harris had answered that. But yes, they do know, and we will continue to communicate that throughout the year, every chance we get. As you all may know, we have AP meetings where we invite parents out. We send letters home. We talk to the students. We talk to the parents. Yes, it will be clearly communicated. It has been, and it will continue to be clearly communicated that they are all expected to take the test. And one thing I want to say is that I do agree with you. Even our data says that we have way more students who qualify, who have the indicators that they would be successful in an AP course than are actually taking the course. So that will be one of our focus too, to make sure that they know that they have indicators that they would be successful so that they can also. So it's about getting the right students in the right place. And that's why it's a great thing that we have these programs, because they are able to choose and matriculate in their interest in what they will be successful in. So those are some of the focuses. And like Dr. Harris said, we've already started working on it, getting the data, seeing what teachers are where, working with the high school, specifically Ms. Ford, to make sure that they are, like I said, in the right places and getting the right support, and even over communicating, like the exit strategy and all of those things. So we'll be working very closely with Ms. Ford at the high school to make sure that all those things are communicated.
It's important that we as a district don't discriminate against a student who wants to be in the program, but it's equally important that we provide them a safe space to be successful.
Definitely.
Right. So we've talked about prerequisites, and I can't help but think that, and it goes back to rigor, if the teachers in the pre-AP classrooms are doing their job of setting the correct expectation in pre-AP of what an AP class looks like, then when they transition to AP, they won't be shocked, they won't be surprised, and it'll weed out the students who may not. And it's not that they're not smart, right? This is not gifted and talented. This is AP. They may not have the desire to do the work, or they may be stretched thin because they're in other extracurricular activities, right? But we can't be in the business of saying this student doesn't belong in this course because we say your previous year was not as successful to our standard. Because what happens is we discount, one, the teacher's ability to teach the student in the first place, but two, the student's engagement level. They may have something happen in their life or be involved in a program that brings out that extra oomph in them to be successful in AP. So we have to be careful that we're not in the business of discriminating against a student and saying, hey, you aren't good enough to be in AP this year. But we also provide them exit strategies to Trustee Moncrief to exit them gracefully out of the program. And you know, so I think you hear the sentiments of the board. Once again, though, we want to see the certification, or not certification, but the ongoing training that the teachers have in place, because it doesn't matter the student's ability. If the teacher's not apt to teach it, then there won't be success. You know, even a broke clock is right twice a day, right? So even if they have minor success, right, because of those gifted students, and we've seen the petitions from the students saying, hey, my teacher can't teach AP. We as a board have forgotten those, right? So we understand it's there, but we can't allow a glimpse of success to take the place of consistent ongoing training in the classroom. And then we get the point of them leaving, potentially. We're in Dallas-Fort Worth. You can be in a district today, another district tomorrow. We get that, we understand that. But even if we have to get creative and bring that training to us, well, I think we're open to all options. And when we did this 2 years ago with the GT program, or a year ago, not GT program, but with all elementary teachers requiring the GT certification, we heard the stories then. Well, I can't make it, but they understood if you didn't make it, you weren't going to be teaching. So I don't see why we can't do that with this, as long as we communicate the expectation clearly and up front. If you don't make it to training, you will not teach AP. I think we'll be fine. And board, we have to be comfortable with that when that comes to us, because just like the elementary teachers came, I guess it was last year, when they came complaining, year before, they came complaining to us then, but they had ample opportunity to get done. The funny thing is, when contracts came around and they saw they were up for non-renewal, they got it done. Couldn't get it done all year, but when they found out they were going to have a contract, they magically availed themselves. We got to have the same attitude with AP. Especially if I'm a parent sending my kid to an AP class. Once again, my student gets straight A's, but can't pass AP exam. There's a disconnect. Board, any further comments, questions, discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Please bring that back to us. Teachers with certification, or not certification, but ongoing training, when it was done, the whole nine, okay? Item 3B, employments, resignations, retirements. Dr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President, this standard report, as we continue to fill vacant positions, you have the report in front of you, and if you have any questions or comment, we'd be more than glad to address it.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Board, this is a standard report item. I've had some time to look through it. And I know at least one trustee that called Dr. Harris for clarification on something. Well, two, rather. Any comments, questions, discussion regarding this? Seeing and hearing none. Board. Okay. Okay. Board, that brings us to our action items, discussion items. Item 4A calls for discussion on DHS security fencing update. Dr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President, I'm going to pass this over to Dr. Lumiere, and she can give you a brief update of how we arrived at reducing security fencing costs.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. President Sherman, Board, obviously, we all remember that sometime in late spring, we came to the board and asked for an amount not to exceed $850,000 for the cost of the fence. We had several meetings with the city, and we arrived at a finalized product of which we were going to go out for bid. When the bids came back, and the lowest bid came back at about $1.2 million. As a result, we went back and did something that's called value engineering. JP, if you can get the Google Earth up for me first, please. We went back and did value engineering to try to get the cost down. Part of what the problem is that when the survey came in, can we zoom in on it, please? When the survey came in, we had a survey previously for the back wing of the high school where the academies had gone in, but there had not been a survey for the front of the high school in some time. If you take me to Eagle Drive on the front, all the way down into the parking lot almost, please. Eagle Drive.
There you go.
Yes. I'll zoom in some more, please. Over in the parking lot, the student parking lot, that's a great place to be. They'll be able to see it. Can we go down further in? Is that where we need to put the little person, Mr. Lucio, to go further? Are you okay? If you guys can see, the problem is the property line. You see on one side of the parking lot, the grass, the depth or width of the grass is wider on one side than it is on the other. Can you all see that? Do we need to go in further? Can everybody see that? I think we can zoom in further and then bring it down. Yeah. Okay. Go over to the left some more. I think it's real. It's the other way. It's really thin. Okay, that's good enough right there. Can you see on the right side, my right, your left, where the property is really thin on one side or not as deep or wide. And so the problem is that that's not enough property for the fence to go in with the columns. And so what we have to do is, the pylons is what they're called. What we have to do is some concrete work in that parking lot area. If you look at the parking spots, maybe you can see them on your screen in front of you better. You can see where the ones on your right are deeper and the ones on the front. So it's not, the parking spots are not even aligned. And so we've got to push those parking spots back and do that concrete work in order to give us more depth to put the fence. So that's what caused our pricing to increase so much. And if JP would scroll over, you'll see that problem exists further down, all the way down by the football stadium as well. In that area right there, it's really bad. You see how thin that is? And so we've got to do some concrete work in the parking lot there, bring those parking spaces back in order to be able to fit a fence in that particular area. So what we did is we went in, like I said, and did value engineering. And what that is that the person who put the bid out, he came back and looked at what he could do to lessen the amount of the fence. And so the biggest thing that we did, you can go back to the other picture with the fence. The biggest thing that we did was remove the pylons. And that's what those columns are called. We removed about 59 pylons to reduce the cost by about $130,000. And so what we're proposing in this new packet is pylons only at the entrances as well as in every place that the fence changes direction. So even with this, though, we were not able to get the cost back down to the $850,000. We still exceeded the cost by $26,000 because obviously we've got to get the concrete work done. One of the other things we did is instead of having our guard shacks, instead of having them sent to us prefabricated, we're going to actually build them on site if the board decides to go on with this project. And so that reduced the cost some bit, or a good bit rather. You should see on page 83 just the different things that we did to reduce the cost. We had not the architect, but the construction company to also reduce his overhead. There was a request for some security at the entrances, and so we took that out of this particular budget with the intent that if we go ahead with this project at some time, that if we decide we want cameras at that booth, at those guard booths, that we will take those cameras from either the security budget or the technology budget. And so that's about $35,000. So in front of you, you see the summary, the option 1 summary. And so we just brought this information back because that's what we requested. I have Mr. Lucio here. Of course, he has more in-depth knowledge and understanding of everything that's going on. And so if the board has any questions at this time, either he or I will try to answer those questions.
Thank you, Dr. Lamoye. Board, this was brought back to us. We see that we're still $26,000 above the funds that were allocated before, but we're definitely open to discussion on this item if there be any. All right, seeing and hearing none, let me ask just a quick question. Are there any other spaces in which, obviously you talked about cameras coming out of technology budget. Do we have any other funds that $26,000 might be able to come out of? And I'm sure you explore multiple options, but
there's a possibility. So we have an option of doing something different, even more so with the guard shacks. And since that's security, we could possibly look at taking one or, enough, depending on how much they are individually. Instead of buying all 3 this way, maybe we can take 2 of them and pay for them through the security budget. We can definitely look at that.
okay. Trustee Gant.
Mr. Lucio, taking those pylons out, is the fence going to be worth anything?
From a structural point of view, there is no change to the fence. From a security point of view, there's no change.
Well,
The pylons really are more of an aesthetic issue than anything else.
so there's no more sturdiness or durability or anything that.
No, the way the fence is designed, the fence is really not even tied to the pylons. The posts will come right up within a few inches of it and stop. And that's designed really purposely to allow the foundation of the pylons and the rest of the fence to move independent of each other, and so that they don't tear each other apart. So the pylons are really there purely for aesthetic purposes. Now, there still is pylons in the design, but they're occurring in this option only at the automobile entrances, and it changes in the fence direction.
Well, I thought all along, and maybe I just misunderstood, I thought all along that the fencing was going to be in some form or fashion embedded or tied to the pylon. So
No, not really. If you notice at the pictures, you'll see that there's a little, at the pylon on the right-hand side, there's a little post right next to it. The distance between the post and the pylon is only a few inches. But
Okay.
we physically don't, you can tie them to them, but we ought to not to do that. Some past experience that we've had is that the foundations for the pylons are much deeper than the foundations for the posts. And because of movement in the earth, as time goes by, if the fence will move independent of the pylons, and if they're tied together, they have a tendency to want to tear each other apart. So we separate them, and that problem doesn't occur.
okay, well,
But it can be done either way, but we opted to do it this way.
no, I just, what I want is I want it done right.
No,
That's my first thing. But I thought, it's just me, I thought they were going to be tied together. But you answered the most important question. The durability or the sturdiness of the structure of the fence. I want to make sure that
It's not compromised in
That's
any
not going to
way.
be compromised.
Not
Okay.
compromised in any way.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gant. Trustee Hooper.
So I want to thank administration for going back and trying to adhere to the budgetary restrictions that the board placed. I'm just going to go ahead and say, I think the lack of pylons greatly change the perception and value add to, from a perception to the campus. I don't like it. I don't like it. But I mean, I understand all of the concerns that contributed to the increased price tag, but it definitely doesn't add to the aesthetic value of the high school. I think with the pylons and the original design, at least the branding as well as, the additional pylons helped to add, it wasn't an eyesore. It looked extremely crisp and professional. And I mean, part of my issue is I would have preferred that we had a true bid on the front end rather than now looking to say, well, we allocated $850,000 under the auspices that that's what we thought it was going to cost with what our expectation was. So if I would have known that it was going to be 1.2 or 1.1 or 1 million on the front end, then I would have been able to stomach that a lot more because that's what I would have planned and budgeted for. But now with the extreme reductions that we've had to make and the shifting of elements to different budgets to try to come within what the board's initial allocation was, I think that it compromises some of what we promised the community in terms of the aesthetics. And I know we had the town hall meeting, and we can say that we had only the same amount of people came that were for it as the same amount of people that were against it. But one of the promises that we did make is that we were not going to make our high school look like something that we don't want it to look like. And so to part of what Trustee Gant said, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. And if we're going to do it, it needs to be a value add, even outside of the security component. Because guess what? I can jump that. I know I don't look in shape because I don't see do these also have the...
Vanderbilt points, yes.
There's
still the height of the fence hasn't changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, based on what I'm looking at, it looked like I can get over it. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. That was just for a little comic relief. But at any rate, I'm just not very comfortable with what I see. And I understand all of what we ask you to do, and I get it. But this is DeSoto High School, and it needs to look like what we expect DeSoto High School to look like. And so I was very comfortable with the original design. Can't so much say that I am with what I see now before us. And that's just where I am. But I'm only one trustee that represents this community, but we were all elected. And, I may get outvoted.
Well, to address your question a little bit, one of the things that the district may opt to do is the bids we took on this project were taken at the beginning of summer. At the beginning of the bidding process, we had a lot of interest from a lot of contractors, but by the time the bid time came, we only had 2 bidders that came in. One of the options that we proposed earlier on is to maybe rebid the project as a possibility of trying to get a better and a more favorable environment later on in the year, maybe in September, which may give us a better option. I can't guarantee that it would, but it might.
How much, because what Dr. Lemonnier said about the additional concrete work that we're going to have to do, how much to the financial element does that add?
Approximately about $220,000.
Okay, so that is a big
That's
piece
a big chunk
of
of it,
the.
yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and we didn't consider any of that on the front.
No, we had some costs in there for some concrete work, but the differences between the
I get
original
it.
drawings we're working off of.
I mean, I get it. Since she showed it to us, I get it. And naturally, if you're not thinking about building something, you don't think about how small this is. But I get it, having to move the spaces back and add the additional concrete work. I get it.
I'm stuck at 2 bids. I understand you can't control who bids, but I'm stuck on 2 bids coming in. For example, the city, they take the first bid, they kick that one out. They take the low bid, kick it out, and deal with the rest. With this, you've got no options.
I don't disagree with you.
So I am definitely and obviously leaning on your expertise, right? If there was interest at a certain time of the year, if there would be interest later on. And I know Dr. Harris has some ideas of different things that we could do potentially down the line. But and we kind of talk about aesthetics and all that good stuff. We understand that's a major component of it. And we also, especially with Officer Sneed in the building tonight, we also understand the security aspect of it and kind of what he shared with us. So we get the full picture of it, the full grasp of it. And we also want to be good trustees of district funds. I'd be very interested, and I think the board would as well, to know what that optimum time to go out for bid is. But furthermore, to hear from Dr. Harris on some different things that we might be able to do down the line. But I think this is a good start for us to know where we were, just to keep the board informed of kind of what you guys have been doing as relates to the safety and security audit we received, as well as kind of the funds we allocated for it as well.
And I got a piggyback question to the points that you brought. In terms of timing, since school is going to start and all of this other stuff, what would be the ideal time for a bid process to be reengaged, and potentially when would be the best time to actually put it up? And what is the time frame attached to all of that?
From a construction point of view, the best time would be to start the work at the end of the start of the summer break. That way, there's nobody at school. That way allows the contractor to start work. The problem is if we wait till next year, there's a lot of lag time in that, where prices of materials are going to increase and everything. So from a bidding point of view and from a construction point of view, based on the time we have now, I would recommend that we try to go out to bid in September. As you're probably aware, every school district in this area is doing construction activities during the summertime. So that's why all the costs get driven up. And there's actually not so much material costs, labor costs have gone up substantially because of that. There's a labor shortage in a lot of skilled trades right now. So now that the summer break is coming to an end, we feel that rebidding the project in September probably would offer a better environment where we have a possibility of attracting a lot more contractors to look at this, which would give us hopefully a better bid. Like I said, I can't guarantee that it won't. Now, I did contact a couple of the major suppliers, like the fence supplier, and they indicated to me that they did not foresee any increase in their products for the next quarter of the year, but they can't look out beyond that point.
Help me with this, 'cause, memory slips me. If you go out for bid, how long does will a bid be good if you were to say you select someone but you don't start until the summer? I mean, how much?
We would basically set that up in the agreement. If we wanted
So you would
them to
lock
start-
in a price.
Correct. We would lock them into a number. Now, you're going to pay a little bit more money up front to do that, to lock somebody in for that period of time.
Yeah, it's,
Now, you can do this construction activity during the school year, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do that. Now, a lot of the fence work along, especially along the east side and the south side of the site, there's very little student activity or nobody goes back there. So that kind of work can be done very easily by the contractors. Primarily along Eagle Drive is going to be the big problem.
remind me, were all the pylons along, was there any pylons along the back?
No, all the pylons were along Westmoreland and Eagle Drive.
Westmoreland, Eagle Drive.
And that's, the remaining pylons are also along there as well. There was never any pylons proposed along the south property line or the east property line.
Board, any further comments, discussion, questions? Well, thank you. Definitely eye-opening to realize it was based on 2 bids. I think that just changed the conversation a little bit. And we're sure that you guys will keep us abreast as things go on and come up with the game plan moving forward. All right, Board, that brings us to item 4B, which is approve vendors to provide architectural services. Dr. Harris.
You've had this, so I'm not going to go into great detail. Okay, go ahead.
It was for discussion, sir. If that's what you're going to ask me.
Can I ask that next time we put it under somewhere else?
Yes, sir. We can
I
definitely.
mean, for it to have actions/discussions, I don't want our community to be thinking we're going to vote on it and they crowd the place. Or, because I was confused. I'm like, wait, we're not voting? I mean, so, even if you put it on the reports, that still gives us the opportunity to just engage, but that just,
Fair enough.
and
Yes,
maybe
sir.
it's just me, but it threw me a big curveball.
Yes, sir. All right. 4B, Dr. Harris.
Just for the record, Mr. President, I want to read the background information to the record as well, so we have that. On April 25th, we solicit responses to requests for qualification 16-003 for architecture firms. We received 12 responses from companies throughout the Metroplex and the state. These responses detailed the abilities of the companies to draw up plans for new buildings or for modification of existing buildings. We asked several questions about company background and experience, financial qualification, previous experience with local Texas school district, project management ability, and finally their ability to involve MWBE companies within projects. In most instances, as an architecture need arises, the district will present a specific scope of work for a given project, solicit a quote or quotes for that project from among the list of approved architecture firms, and then evaluate the quotes and award the project. RFQ 16-003 was advertised per current purchasing law requirements. The sponsor was evaluated by the Finance Department, the Plant Services Department, and the Purchasing Department staff. All firms responding to the qualification solicitation are qualified and are recommended for approval. The evaluation spreadsheet is attached for review. Approving multiple firms in architecture planning will allow the district's flexibility in selection of firms and should result in better pricing. Purchase for architecture service will be made from plant services operating budget funds or designated bond funds. RFQ documents are available for review in the purchasing office. Recommendation: recommend approval of all 12 firms responding to the RFQ. Corrigan and Associates Incorporated, Perkins plus Will Incorporated, WA Architects, Huckabee Incorporated, Page Sutherland Page Incorporated, JL Architect Group Incorporated, GSR Andre Architects Incorporated, PBK Architects, LBL Architects Incorporated, Harper Perkins Architects Incorporated, VLK Architects Incorporated, and Clark Agent Architecture Group.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Board, you've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. I'll entertain a motion if there be any at this time.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Trustee Gant to approve the recommendation of the superintendent as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Hall. Any questions, comments, discussion regarding this?
Yes.
Trustee Gant.
Who do I ask? I typically ask this gentleman right here. What's the thought process, strategy to approve everyone?
Basically, what it gives us options. Within that group, there are some that do not do major construction architecture. There's some that do modifications, so that gives us the option. The others, that would give the option to the building committee to review each individual firm and to pick the best firms that they felt like to present to the board, or the board could hear from as many as they wanted to hear from. I feel like that gives us a lot more options, rather than us trying to select 5 firms and say these are the 5 firms we're going to use. Because of the difference in the scopes of the projects that we have, typically we haven't had to go out for the RFQ because it hadn't met the $50,000 threshold. However, in this situation, by just putting out for the new elementary school, we will well exceed that $50,000. Then any other projects that come up, if we need a smaller firm or we need a more specialized firm, then we couldn't do that without them being an approved vendor.
Okay, of course. My next question is, what does that do to us pricing-wise? Now, because typically, when you approve one, that gives you a little bit better price scope.
We're only approving them as an approved vendor. At this point, for example, like I say, if the building committee chooses 3 to come before the board, then those 3 will bid again for the school district's business. Basically, this was a request for qualification. This wasn't a bid. This is a request for qualification. So all of these current firms passed and were qualified to do architectural services for DeSoto ISD. Now, the next time we do it, we will bring those forward to the board, and these will be bidding on a specific project.
Okay, I now understand what you're doing. I can't say that I understand, but I can't say I totally agree with it. It seems like a waste to me, but it's okay. It's no big deal. I'm just.
Well, we do the same thing with our hardware and lumber. We do the same thing with our food. We do the same thing with our
Exactly, but
it's the same process. They're qualified.
if all of them can do the same thing, why do we need that many vendors? But I'm the only one that asked, so maybe just
Up to y'all. So, I mean,
call me tomorrow and we'll talk.
like, for example.
I'm just trying to.
So if you run things, and they can handle the whole thing.
Thank you, Trustee Gant.
Of course.
Trustee Hooper.
And I think Bobby answered my question, but I just wanted to make sure. So, just in terms of process, so you're asking us to approve them as approved vendors. Then all of them will submit renderings or
As many as the building committee chooses to have submitted,
or the board.
or the board chooses to have submitted. Yes, sir.
There we go. And then from there, that will come back to the board to make a decision.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I definitely appreciate the building committee being formed and put together. I think that our community can be proud of that. Just to get their feedback and buy-in on the front end, I think speaks volumes. And so I definitely want to, just since we're on the topic, thank you guys for doing that and having the foresight to involve our community along the way. Seeing and hearing no further comments or questions. Mr. Gant, Trustee Gant.
I want to ensure that the district has all the tools that it needs to construct an educational campus for our kids. Therefore, I'm going to vote for this. I still don't, but I'm going to vote for it because this is what you feel you need to do what's best for our kids. I think it's a lot, but I just want to, when I vote yes, I don't want to, oh, he's an idiot. He said he disagreed. I want to make sure everybody clear what my thought process is.
Dr. Harris.
I'm almost tempted to say, do we need to take a recess in order so that we, if there's something that we need to, because I want to make sure that we're not missing something.
No. I just don't. I think it's, personally, I just think it's a waste of time to approve these many as vendors when they all can do the same thing. But I sell barbecue for a living. I don't build campuses. And this is what he feels, or this is what the administration feels the best interest of building an educational facility for our kids. So I'm trusting that you're knowing what you're doing, and I'm going to go back tomorrow and sell barbecue. So
Ms. Gant, I think one of the things that, and I mean, I know we may have some people here, but one thing I hope that comes out of this is that we get a more competitive price. So that is one of the things that I hope comes out of this. That's what I hope that we end up with.
Well, it's not something that's going to cost us a ton of money. It's going to cost the building committee a little bit more time, but I mean, it's not going to put the district out any crazy expense. So, but it's what you guys feel you need to do what you need to do, and I'm okay with that. Now, if you said it was going to cost us another $500,000 to do it, then we might be having a different conversation. But it's just there's nothing wrong. I just think it's a waste of time. But that's not for. It doesn't involve us spending more money, so that's not for me to assess per se in a matter such as this. So I'm okay with it.
All right, board, we've had a motion to approve as presented, a second. Seeing no further comments or discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Nay. That motion carries 6-1. Dr. Harris, it would be nice if you could, I know at the retreat you guys provided us a timeline. This was the first item on that timeline, but just continue to put those dates in front of us so that we know where we are in the process. We're definitely excited about building another campus in our district. Board, that brings us to item 5, which is executive session. Thankfully, we have no need for that. It's been a while coming where we don't need that. Item 6 calls for comments. I believe last week we started to our right. This time we'll start to our left. Trustee Gold.
I attended the back to school fair on Saturday, and thank you, Ms. Levels. It was wonderful. It was very well organized. It was very well attended, and thank you very much. I understand that Ms. Palazzo, Ms. Reed, and Ms. Moss were very instrumental in making that happen. So thank you, ladies that are here tonight. Thank you very much. It was very well done. Thank you. And I think the community, by the way, I made my rounds, and the community was receiving it very well and very positive. Everybody was having a really good time. So
Thank you, Trustee Gold. Trustee Daniel.
I went to the drill team mother and daughter tea last Saturday. It was a lovely event. The girls looked beautiful in their flower dresses, and I'm glad to see the drill team is bonding and moving forward under great leadership.
Thank you, Trustee Daniel. Trustee Moncrief.
I certainly want to echo the comments of both of my fellow trustees. I also attended the Back to School Fair, and let me just say that's one of the events that I look forward to every year. It is always so well run, and just I love to see just all the different moving parts because there's so many. And I was excited to see the Perot there this year with a special activity section for the kids. You know how I am about the kids. So I was just really excited to see that. I thought that was great. I also want to commend one of our newest hires, Miss Bell, I believe, the project coordinator for the 21st Century Grant. She hit the ground running. I was so impressed. She had the sign-up sheets out for the aftercare program, which is that was just awesome. That was just awesome, and I think they got a lot of participation. The principals were certainly driving parents over to her table to sign up. So I just want to commend her and Miss Garner and all the people who worked with her to get that going. And also, I also attended the mother-daughter tea for the drill team, and that was also a very nice event as well. And I hope we continue to do that as well.
Thank you, Trustee Moncrief. Trustee Gant.
The only thing I've attended the last few weeks is our retreat, which I really think went really well. We had some very healthy discussion on some topics, and I think it was a tremendous help in the team building portion of our retreat. So I thank Mr. Hall for adjusting his schedule, and I think he had to go out of town, but he made some adjustments so we could all participate and be a part of that and make that happen. So I appreciate that. The only other comment I want to say, I was thinking about this last night as I was watching the Olympics, and I almost was in tears. As you watch these athletes participate, and you see the parents in the stands, and it just gives you goose pimples to just see all of these Americans participating and fighting and doing everything they can win, doing everything they can do to win for one nation. And I think as we all watch the Olympics, and I mean, I watch it all because I'm a sports buff, but just to see the participation in their sports I've never even watched before, but they're Americans. And it's like they're winning, and they're winning for us. And I think it's the one time every 2 years, with the Summer Olympics being 4 years apart, and then the winter. So every 2 years we have some sort of Olympics, but it is the one time that we all appear to seem to come together. And we don't argue, and we don't fight, and we don't fuss, and we root for the red, white, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope y'all get my point. Why can't we do it more often? Why can't we fight together? It's a wonderful time of year. And I mean, Michael Phelps has had his issues. Sloan Biles has had her issues when she was growing up. But we're rooting for all of them because they wear the red, white, and blue. So they're just, I mean, if you're not proud to be American, something wrong with you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gant. And we're really excited for our for DeSoto's very own participating in the Olympics. So, so we definitely have some added reason to cheer and be excited about the Olympics this year. Trustee Hall.
Thank you. Wasn't able to go on Saturday to what was a great event, I'm understanding, but I was able to go to the DeSoto Night Out Tuesday night at about 101, something like that. But the temperature there was really good. I even, in one of them, almost thought I could dance, but I decided that that was just probably a fleeting thing. And I had a lady there that was going to take me up on it. But Captain Moon took my place, fortunately. He's younger and that sort of thing. So, but it was good to get with the community and listen to what they say and talk to them. And we ought to do that a lot more, only in cooler weather, maybe in the spring and the fall, late fall. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being with the people. I got to see the new car that the DeSoto Police Department has donated to them by one of our finest, and I don't think you can wipe the smile off of William's face. He gets to drive it. So, but it was fun to be with the people of DeSoto. We have some really good people here. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Trustee Hooper.
Thank you. I too attended DeSoto Night Out, and I just have to say, number one, we have a world-class community, but we also have a world-class police department. It is amazing just to see the relationships that our police officers have with our community. And it's hard to police without relationship. And that's something that this police department, as well as the fire department, that's something that, you know, our first responders understand. I always say that we have the best police chief and the best fire chief in the country. And I definitely appreciate the leadership that they provide to both of those departments. But also, that's our opportunity for the city, the police department, the community, the school district. We all get to embrace the community and hear their concerns. But, you know, it was really a lot of positive that was spread at many of the sites in terms of the school district, the police department, and the great things that the city are doing. And that was really refreshing to hear. I can cite some great stories that some of our members of our community talked about, positive encounters with law enforcement, even when they were getting pulled over for speeding or whatever. And that's refreshing to hear when you have people who both have a great relationship and appreciation for law enforcement. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the back to school fair. And many of you know that I was in Tulsa attending the funeral services for Vanetta Kennard in the passing of her mother. Also, in that same vein, on the behalf of Commissioner Price and Zach Thompson, they wanted me to express to this board and this district that unfortunately they couldn't make it because they also had to attend their services. But as we know, for years they have been great supporters of that event, and had it not been for the passing of Mrs. Kennard's mother and us having to go to Tulsa, that we would have all been there. And so on their behalf, I wanted to express that message to the district, to you too, Dr. Harris.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper. Dr. Harris.
I have no comments. I need to go get working on AP information like right away.
Thank you, sir.
Like right away. But thank you, Dr. Inslee. She's already sent me the information, so she just sent it to me, so I will supply it to the board. So she's all over it, so I'll get it to you guys.
Thank you so much. Okay. This last year we talked about accelerating expectations.
That's right. That's quick.
Right.
That's right.
All right, thank you, Dr. Harris. Board, we definitely want to be mindful. One of our employees lost a sister. Regis Ademudier lost his sister who passed, who she's also a DeSoto graduate. And so we definitely want to be prayerful for that family. As you know, it's a lot going on. We're getting ready to go back to school, and he's lost a loved one. So we want to be prayerful for him and our Eagle family as a whole. I believe she graduated in 2004. So we definitely want to keep that family in our prayers as we go throughout our day. All right. See no further comments or discussion. Board, our mission statement is to prepare each student academically and socially to be a problem solver and productive citizen for a 21st century global society. I think we've addressed that mission today, especially speaking about AP at length. And we can go to bed tonight saying that we did the business of DeSoto ISD in a way that our community can see fit. Time is now 8:09, and we'll call this meeting adjourned.